Have you ever wondered why life does this very strange thing? Like you're born into this world being very open, intuitive, sensitive, almost like you can feel everything. And then the world breaks you and makes you forget who you really are. And then you spend many years, maybe even decades or lifetimes, trying to remember yourself. Like, why? It feels illogical, cruel even. Why not just come whole and love, serve, and help others? Why not just come that way? Why all this pain, trauma, forgetting, confusion, adaptation, collapse, integration, and then rebuilding if the point has always been the same? So today I'd like to talk about what I think is actually happening, especially for empaths, highly sensitive people, and just anyone who feels like their capacity felt like a curse until it didn't. I want to be very clear before we go deeper. This isn't about spiritual ego, superiority, being more aware or better than others. No. It's about nervous systems, sensitivity, perception, and what can happen if power exists without regulation. I am sharing from my own lived experience, not as a universal truth, so take what resonates and leave the rest. Here's a core idea. I don't think ego death happens to sensitive people, people with heightened perception, as a punishment. It happens as a safety mechanism. Not to weaken you, but to make your power safe to hold. Because sensitivity without regulation becomes destructive, even if it is the truth, what you're sensing and what you want to share. And I just want to clarify, when I say ego death, I don't mean that ego disappears completely. It's a myth. Ego is that part of us that has learned how to survive, how to adapt, protect, belong. We all have it and it exists, so we're able to live in this physical world. Ego death does not destroy the ego. It breaks the identification with it. So the shift is happening from being inside the ego to being able to see it and having more awareness when we're operating from it. So I've been thinking about this metaphor a lot. Some people carry blunt tools and other people carry surgical instruments that require care. And if you're carrying something very sharp, like emotional precision, truth-saying, or intuitive clarity, and you're still operating from a wounded ego, then even truth becomes a weapon. Not because you're evil, but because you're unregulated and you're still hurting. And in this case, truth without compassion, it does not heal. It humiliates, it destabilizes, and it can actually break someone who's not ready. So I've noticed this pattern and I think a lot of you will recognize it. Stay with me. So phase one, you're born open. You trust yourself and what you sense, and you're not afraid of naming the truth and what you're sensing. You don't know how to play the roles and you're not smiling by default. Phase two, this is when you learn that it's not safe to be yourself and tell the truth because you're being labeled as too sensitive, too much, too intense. Maybe you even get shamed or even punished for telling the truth. So you learn how to adapt to survive. Phase three, you forget yourself and who you really are. For many people, this is most of life. You become good, pleasing, useful, hyper-aware, over-responsible. You survive. You lose contact with your intuition, your heart, and your body. And maybe you even feel like you're living someone else's life, not yours. You may even ask yourself, what was all this for? Phase four, ego death. And it rarely looks spiritual. It looks like something collapses, externally, internally, or both. Burnout, disillusionment, depression, loss, identity crisis. You just can't pretend anymore. The mask you crafted and wore your entire life no longer fits. no matter how much you're trying to readjust it on your face. It's not awakening, not yet. It's deconditioning, unlearning everything you're not and you have never been. Unlearning what the world told you had to be and you believe you were. Phase 5, you start remembering, but differently. Not as raw power, but as embodied power. You know when to speak because it can heal. And you know when to stay quiet and silent because your truth can actually hurt. You no longer speak to ease your own pain. You actually think about how it will end and whether the other person is ready or not. You feel the dosage. You feel the responsibility. This is the initiation. Let me give you a personal example because I think it explains what I mean better than any theory. Not so long ago, someone asked me, "Are you happy with your life?" And I said yes. And in a few seconds, I said yes again. And I literally started smiling because I was shocked. It was true, even with the real loss. Because for many years, it wasn't true. I felt hurt, exhausted, tired, confused. I felt like I was surviving, not living. So my answer was not performative, it was real, and it really surprised me. And also, no one ever asked me this question before, and I remember thinking how kind this question was. And then something else happened. I didn't ask back, "What about you?" Not because I didn't care, but because I sensed something. And I didn't want to put him in a position where he would have to lie and say, "Yeah, me too," or explain something that he was not ready to explain, or feel exposed. This is what I mean by mature empathy. It's not scanning people to get information. It's not pushing. It's not extracting truth. It's empathy with consent. Empathy that protects another person's dignity. And here's a contrast, because this is really the heart of this video. If I were in the earlier unintegrated version of me, I would have probably done something like this. I might have heard his question, felt his discomfort, contraction, or even pain, and I would immediately start telling him what I sense is wrong in his life and why. And maybe most of that would even be true. But the thing is that this kind of truth, when it's being told to someone who is not ready, it does not heal. It destabilizes. It creates shame, defensiveness, or panic. It's like pointing a surgical laser at someone who did not consent to surgery. This kind of truth, in the wrong hands or from an unhealed wound or ego, does not just cut precisely. It burns people where they're most vulnerable. So yes, your abilities are real, but maturity is knowing when not to use them. So when people ask, why did I have to go through all of this? Why did life make me forget who I really was? Why did I have to be broken first? I think it's because without this breaking, your sensitivity or your capacity would stay sharp but not wise. And sharp without wisdom is dangerous, because without humility, your empathy becomes manipulation, intuition becomes control, and truth becomes punishment or weapon. And with humility, all of those qualities become medicine, even if you're not saying a single word. The world didn't break you to erase your power. Ego death happens to remove your need to use your power to defend yourself, to punish, to control, to avoid, to prove something. That's where the shift happens. It's not, I see more than you, but I see and I know how to hold what I see with love and compassion. So it's not about life breaking you. I think it's about life requiring you to adapt for too long in ways that later had to be undone. So if you're in the collapse part right now and you feel like you're losing yourself, I want to kind of offer this perspective. Sometimes the collapse is not the failure, it's a recalibration. It's as if life is saying, you can't keep carrying your gift through a wounded identity anymore, because you're being trained to hold your power without harm. If you recognize yourself in this cycle, you're not crazy, you're not late, you're not broken. You might just be learning how to be a safe place for your own sensitivity and for other people. And maybe the real integration is learning how to carry something very powerful without hurting yourself or the world.